devastated.
Yeah.
All the houses just.
Yeah.
School had
Oh
a few
yeah,
had windows blown out.
you come out in the morning and there'd be half a house down the road and disappear.
Do you remember the overhead railway in Liverpool?
Didn't they?
Do you remember the overhead railway?
Oh yeah.
The overhead.
The overhead. Yes.
They're overhead.
Overhead.
The overhead.
I used to love going there, but that's all disappeared now. Because that was all closed during the war because it went beside the docks. But I remember after the war, going along there, and you could look at all the ships in the docks.
Yeah.
I used to adore that.
I used to love
The Scotland Road, that was a real poor area.
with my grandma on the ferry to New Brighton.
Oh, New Brighton, yeah.
Yeah.
And to Birkenhead.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another Aunt Chris and Uncle Joe story. Aunt Chris was in the grocery store one day, ordering the groceries, and they must have been very short of toilet paper. Said, oh my goodness, the bottom will be out of Joe's life, he can't have toilet paper.
She was quite
That's Aunt
sweet,
Chris.
really, but totally potty.
Oh, about the potty, yeah.
Uncle Joe, I forget, was the Empress of Canada, I think it was in Gladstone Dock. He was working on there, and it went on fire somehow.
Yeah.
And so he got off the ship and
Well,
left
he
all
was
his tools.
an engineer on it, on a merchant marine group.
Yeah, but I don't know what he was doing instead. He left all his tools and everything on the ship, but he got off the ship. Well, the whole thing caught fire, they pumped it so full of water, tipped over right in the dock.
Yeah.
It was there on its side in the dock for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
So when you slept under the table for 4 years, what did you sleep with? Just blankets?
Well, yeah, blankets, pillow. Because it was one of these heavy Victorian mahogany.
So whereabout did you live?
I lived just outside Manchester.
Oh, outside Manchester.
And we used to get bombed every
Yeah,
night.
I know.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah.
So how old were you?
I was 11 when the war started.
One of
Yeah, I was
Bruce's,
7
10 or
when I was
11,
7 when
yeah.
it started, yeah.
one of Bruce's relatives, they lived across from the Mersey.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
New Brighton?
Right out in the country, anyway there.
Oh. Where the Wirral?
Yeah, the Wirral.
I suppose so. Anyway, apparently they used to have any bombs over, they'd unload them.
Yeah.
Or Park Gate, perhaps.
Yeah.
Probably Park Gate or somewhere.
No,
The
not
Wirral
Parkgate.
Peninsula.
Yes.
Anyway, I think it was his grandmother was killed by a bomb.
Yeah.
She was way out in the country.
Yeah. Well, they sometimes when they were leaving, and they had any extra bombs, they'd drop them anywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anywhere,
They didn't
houses.
dare-
Oh, they were in big trouble if
Yeah.
they got back
Then they go
home
back with
without the
bombs on the
bombs, yeah.
Who's they?
Well,
The Germans.
the pilots,
You could hear the German planes had a different noise from ours.
yeah.
Hankels, whatever they call it. Going overhead.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then the bomb.
Then the searchlights would come up and the anti-aircraft guns would
And the
start.
barrage balloons.
It was noisy. Noisy.
Remember the barrage balloons?
But the bombing died down after a while in Liverpool, so
Do you remember everybody had to have your gas mask?
Yeah.
I know we used to have gas mask drill every morning at school.
Yeah.
You had to have your little gas mask, and the teacher would
You
say,
weren't evacuated then?
No. Well, we could have been, but
Yeah.
my mother didn't want us to
That's
go.
what happened with a lot of people.
Did you get sent to boarding school?
Me,
But towards
no.
the end of the war, Liverpool, the west coast was pretty quiet because
Yeah.
that's when the buzz bombs were coming over.
Oh yeah. Those were
After the
terrible.
invasion of Europe,
Yeah.
they couldn't. They didn't have the range to go to the west coast,
No.
so that was relatively quiet after towards the end of the
Yeah,
war.
but those buzz bombs were wicked.
Oh, they were, but those
I had
were,
a
they
friend-
didn't get as far as the west coast.
A
though.
girlfriend
Yeah.
of mine, she was working in London, and she had a piece of shrapnel in her spine, and they couldn't remove it. They said if they tried to remove it, she'd be
She'd die.
paralysed. Yeah. So she's living with a piece of shrapnel from a V bomb.
all those buzz bombs were terrible.
Yeah, there were these
These were rockets, Gillian.
They're sent over, and you hear them whining, "Woo," And when they stopped whining, run, because they're coming down.
Yeah.
That's when
That's when
down.
the engine gave out.
Yeah, and they came down.
Yeah.
And they were huge.
But they weren't. They were in evidence when after Germany conquered France, because I don't think they didn't launch them from Germany, did they? It was from when they were.
Not sure.
They launched them from France.
No, the battles were going on in France. They must have launched them from Germany.
Well, they were desperate, and
yeah.
then the Americans went in and captured all their rocket scientists, right? Well, what the Russians left behind, you know. The American army rushed in and grabbed all these rocket people.
So how old were you when this was going on?
I was about 11. I was about
Allison's age.
Allison's age.
Scary.
But I remember when they were threatening the invasion.
Yeah, oh gosh, yes.
And we were told we all had to defend her. And my grandfather lived with us, and he'd been in the First World War. I'll show them, Jerry. Set foot in my garden, and we had all these garden tools sharpened up. And my father, he was going to kill Germans with my mum's bread knife. Can you imagine it?
Well, we all had our jobs to do. I was supposed to go round the stores and take stock of the food.
When you look back, it's hilarious, you know.
Well, yeah,
You kids